John, thank you very much. It's been an honor having you for these past 2 days. And thank you for giving us this opportunity to take this little interview of you. Let me start off by asking you, based on Brand Islam, the new black in marketing, and the transformational leadership, in your opinion, what would be the top 3 steps or action steps that Islamic finance and halal could take in terms of branding and leadership to take the industries forward?
Those are really good questions. I think a thing that's really important is that focusing on the people, and perhaps within Islamic finance and halal, we spent a lot of time focusing on products. So making sure whether the ingredients and the item itself is Sharia compliant, and that I would extend to Islamic finance as well. And I've wondered whether we spend enough time looking at the people within that process. Are we managing in a way that's Sharia compliant, or are we communicating in a way which reflects the needs and wants of Muslims and non-Muslims? And by needs and wants, I mean that the full spectrum of experiences and emotions, because good marketing is about connecting with people, and if people don't have a need and a want, then it's very difficult to then communicate certain values. So I think that being more people-centric would help.
Excellent point that you make, which is we see in the finance industry we are very product-centric and we are very technically focused. Now, taking the case of leadership, since you're from University of Greenwich, we are a university teaching Islamic finance, should leadership be part of the skills and courses that we teach our university students?
I'm going to say yes.
Great.
And the way that I tend to view the area is that if I'm lecturing in branding or if I'm lecturing in management, I think that it's the same skills. My first argument is that I try to get people to think that a good brand is trying to get it as human as is possible. So it's a bit like the story of Pinocchio. You had Geppetto, who made a puppet who wanted to be a boy. So I think that the best brands make you feel like you're having a meaningful, human, organic relationship. They are your friends, they are the things that you turn to, they are the things that are part of your community. So actually, I think the same values and the same concepts apply whether you're creating a brand leader or a world-class brand as an actual leader, a human leader. We have to look at the personality, the identity, how you connect with people, the set of values, the principles. And I think that now, especially with social media and everything being about communication, whether that's communication with your thumbs, whether that's typed communication, spoken communication, WhatsApps, emoticons, everything is telling us that it's about communicating to several people all of the time, often, all day long. And I think that these soft skills are really important, more so than ever before.
Let me then take that a step further and say, with the importance of the soft skills, how large a role does culture play in this?
I think the interesting thing is that, you know, a couple of decades ago, Harvard were putting forward the argument that globalization will mean that we all are going to become the same. In many ways, our needs and wants and consumption patterns will converge. And that hasn't happened. Actually, in some ways, a way that we've tried to cope with globalization is that we have in some ways become very similar, but in other ways we've become more cultural. If we look at second or third generation economic migrants, they haven't forgotten the culture of their host nations. I mean, for those people that support sports teams, whether that's football or cricket, you'll be acutely aware of the fact that, you know, you could be living in England, but not necessarily support England for cricket or even for football or something. So actually, culture has remained really important, and it's become more important. The interesting thing as well is that culture is being redefined, new bonds are being created, and so you have tribes and subcultures. And so kind of the old textbook definitions of monolithic nations, where a lot of the time they would say that, you know, Japanese are like this, or the Americans are like this, or, you know, Asians are like this. I would actually challenge some of those arguments, because then, you know, how would that explain Asians living in Britain, or how would that explain the European American that marries somebody from Asia? And I think there are too many of these examples that are demonstrating that actually there is this convergence, but also it's not it's not making us all the same. We are becoming more culturally centric. We're becoming hybrids where you know, you've got complicated sets of interests and desires, people, whether that's food and you like Italian food and Chinese food and Malaysian food, whether that's literature or sport or travel. I think the mistake is that people feel that it's a zero-sum game where basically, you know, the old argument is that if you're Asian and you go to the West and live, that you will become a coconut or a banana, that basically, you know, something in you changes and you sacrifice some of your Asian credentials. And I think that it's not about that, it's about wealth creation, that you still know what it's like to be from your hometown or your home country or Asian, but you develop another personality or another skill.
Which then leads me to just ask this last question. Are organizations today recognizing culture in their strategy? Because more and more organizations, especially playing around in our Islamic economy, seems to be operating on the age-old strategy fit environment model. Whereas we are looking at this people explosion, communities on social media which are culturally connected, no matter where you are geographically. How much of an importance should organizations now actually put on culture in terms of marketing and also culture internally? Because there's a group of people who are the organization. So I'd just like you to take that last one off.
I don't think enough time is spent. I think that organizations should be more culturally centric. I think that not everybody can be as cultural. So maybe you need, as Grant McCracken has said, a chief cultural officer, but you need some people that are concerned with culture, are culturally curious and really want to engage, and then the rest that have to kind of trust and be guided. Now, if we look at universities, for example, then, you know, sometimes I've joked to my students that it could be like a pint of Guinness, in the idea that you have a big student body of people, you know, international students, but the top senior management could be of a different ethnic origin. Not that that's a problem, but then if it's about a culturally diverse organisation, the staff and the decision makers should reflect the consumers and the audience. So if you look at Islamic finance, are we actually looking at if we have the same diverse set of employees as we would expect to see within the market offerings? When we look at cultural diversity, it's not just about ethnic origin or religious belief or race, but also the interests, the expertise. Do we have arts people? Do we have science people? I think these things are important. And I think also demonstrating that organisations move beyond rhetoric, where they might state that culture is important or they respect culture, but we want tangible evidence as to how that happens. And that for me means looking at the employees who are the manifestation of a corporate brand, and basically practicing what you preach. You say, look at our staff, this is how they behave, these are their values, this is diversity in our networks, and it's put forward. And I think organisations that are able to communicate that do much better than others.
Thank you so much, John. It's been a pleasure having you over here.
Thanks.
Thank you.